What's up, everyone? This is Jason Flagel, and I am very excited to be here with John Morris. John is, yeah, we were just talking offline about actually building a gaming computer. And if for those of you who are following my YouTube channel, you know I'm a big gamer. I'm a big mechanical keyboard enthusiast. I love building gaming computers. So that was something, yeah, John and I were really excited about here before we got things going. But beyond that, I'm really excited to welcome John. John is the founder and CEO of Fiscal Advocate. So a little bit about his bio, and I'll give John an opportunity to kind of unpack his story here and what exciting things they're doing at Fiscal Advocate. So at 30, John started a digital marketing agency called Rise Interactive. When John sold Rise 16 years later, it was one of the largest independent digital agencies in the world. So a lot of awesome experience in the agency space. So for those of you in my audience who are agency owners, you're definitely going to want to tune into this. John has some awesome frameworks for growth and has been using these frameworks for many different verticals, helping businesses scale their company the right way. Welcome, John. Thank you so much for taking time, to be here with the audience, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the Marketing Masters podcast. And to get things kicked off, I want to jump in a little bit about your story, your background. So yeah, we heard a little bit about your agency, Rise Interactive, and everything there. A lot of some of the accolades, but most people know, there's a story is full of ups and downs. So can you give,
Yeah.
a little bit about your story in a nutshell?
Yeah. So, first of all, Jason, love being on the show. Thank you so much. I started Rise in 2004. And as you mentioned, I grew into a fairly large agency before exiting it. And there were a few things. One, I believe in building great businesses with long-term views. And I used to run a ton of marathons. And if you ever do marathon training, it's an 18-week training program. And you start out with your long run is 6 miles. I used to tell people if you can run 6 miles, you can run a marathon. And by the end, you do 26.2 miles. And I took the same approach to my business where, my first year in sales, I did $12,000. And my final year of sales, I did around $37.5 million. And so the idea was to make investments and be an incrementalist that constantly made the company better and better every single year. So that was kind of the approach that I took to the company. And you'll hear me talk about it a lot, but this concept of the pursuit of world class. And the idea is that every year your service offering should get better and better so that your clients today have a better service than they did yesterday. And your clients tomorrow will have a better service than they do today. So that was part of my journey. A big part of how I was able to scale was how I used the financial data to make decisions about time and money. And in my belief, and it doesn't matter what you do for a living, if you're the CEO of a company, you have two different owners. One owner or two different bosses. One is the owner of the company. Even if you own 100% of the company, there's two versions of yourself. There's the owner version that hired you as the CEO, and then there's the CEO version that is reporting into that owner. But the second boss, and this is the boss that I really focused on, is the income statement. And the income statement is either improving and getting better year over year over year. So your year over year revenue growth is improving, your profits are growing, your cash is growing, or it's not. It's a very objective business owner. And I held myself accountable to that. And that's actually, Fiscal Advocate is a tech-enabled finance management company that helps professional service companies manage all their finances and really leverage this data to make better decisions. And the idea came because that's what I did at Rise. And I thought it'd be really fun to help other people emulate that success.
Oh, that's really cool. So it kind of came about because, yeah, you were in the agency space. And was it because you saw like some of the greatest challenges there was related on the financial side, like the income statement, John, like you just mentioned?
The real way I got the idea for the business is we had a business coach. And we would meet with this coach every 3 months. If you ever heard of EOS, we were an EOS company, and we use that to manage our business. And I would meet with the EOS implementer every 3 months, and we do our prioritization for the next 3 months. And every single time we met him, he's like, the insights that you guys have is like nothing I've ever seen. It's a business within itself. Yeah, and after awesome. Hearing this for 3 years, and then exiting Rise, and I was like, well, what am I going to do next? And that just kept on ringing. It's a business within itself. It's a business within itself. I was like, that would be a fun business. I would like to do that. And so now I'm a fractional CFO, very different than being a digital marketer.
Yep.
But it's the same premise. We built at Rise a technology platform that brought in all the data from all the different digital media channels. That gave us insights to make better decisions for our clients. And now I'm doing the same thing. I've built technology that brings in all the financial data that allows professional service companies to make better decisions on how they spend their money.
Yeah, I love that. It's you're learning by doing, or you're finding those problems as you work, with your customers.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, I see, especially with a lot of the businesses I'm working with too, and some of the other guests we've had on the show, John, where they found a way to do something successfully. And usually, as you described, you've used EOS and Traction. A big part of that conversation is like having a success system. And like that's literally what you just built, with Fiscal Advocate, which I really love. And I kind of want to point out or highlight something there with what you just said, the pursuit of the world class. Where did that like innate desire come from? I mean, did you grow up doing sports and wanting to do that? Because I grew up as I competed nationally in swimming. I used to swim with like Michael Phelps and Lochte, and like I have that drive too, and that competitive desire. So you mentioned you're running marathons and things. Do you think that innate ability or that desire kind of came from your athletic background, or like where does that kind of pursuit of excellence come from?
I've always had a strong competitive drive. I did play soccer in college, but I did not play with the elite level of players that you played with. But I did have 5 national team players on my team.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
I started right side bench and the coach sat on the left side of the bench. So that gives you an idea where I was. But
you still were at that level though, and still it's a rarer part of the population, John.
But look, in general, I spend a lot of time analyzing and thinking about the competition. And I really like to think about, why are we unique? What makes us different? And if you're not constantly evolving and constantly getting better, you're going to get out innovated. And one of the things I said at Rise, and one of the things I say at Fiscal Advocate, is our #1 sales goal is to never lose a client due to performance. I don't mind. I've lost 3 clients this year. All of them sold to a larger company. Actually, one of them I actually still might hold on to, but there's nothing I can do about that. In fact, one of them talked about how, thank you so much, this never would have happened. It was life-changing. So we were an impact of it, but I still lost the revenue. But it wasn't because we screwed up. And don't get me wrong, we will always lose a client because we'll make a mistake. Like we're all human, or the cultural fit with us and the client might not be there. But but the point is that if you can mitigate that and really make it so that you lose your clients to the macro factors and not micro factors, and then you can go build a good sales engine, you're going to build a great business. And so this concept of the pursuit of world class is all focused on never lose a client due to your own performance or mistakes.
Yeah, that's a quotable right there. I love that, John. Well, I want to get into connect it back to actually what you just said, some of the things that differentiate you. Because I was checking out, your websites and the platform, with Fiscal Advocate. And a few of the quotes that really stuck out to me were, you've got the world's first decision-making growth system. On the Fiscal Advocate site, you've got make more money, save time doing it. And then to be a world-class executive, you need world-class financials. Again, bring it back to what we just talked about, doing things with excellence. Can you unpack a little bit about, some of those positioning messages that you have? Because I love them. I really connected, with those messages as a business owner myself.
So I'm going to start with the make more money and save time doing it. All we have is money and time. And I want you to think about it. You have hundreds, if not thousands of competitors. I have hundreds, if not thousands of competitors. Our boss is the income statement, and we are going to make black and white decisions based on gray information. And the outcome is going to be black or white, meaning we're either going to grow faster than our competition or we're not going to grow faster than our competition. And so how we spend our money and how we spend our time is going to be the things that decide that. And so what we're trying to do here is help people understand how they should make money and what they need to do to make money and how we're going to help them save time through automation. But then I'll get into the decision-making part. In my opinion, there are only 3 KPIs that matter. So I want you to think about this. There are infinite amount of KPIs you can track. And, we talked about EOS, and EOS talks about building a scorecard. And I'm going to go talk about my EOS implementer. When I first met him, he used to actually own his own agency before he became an EOS implementer. And he had clients that were agencies. And he's like, it's going to take about 6 months for us to build your scorecard. Mm. And I was like, wait, can I just pause you for a second? I was like, didn't you used to own your own agency? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, and don't you have agencies as clients? And he's like, yeah. I was like, well, then why can't you just give me the scorecard? Why is it going to take 6 months for me to build this custom scorecard? Can't you give me the playbook? And the reality is that my scorecard was different than all of his other clients' scorecards, which was different than his. Well, I'm going to give you the scorecard. The scorecard is 3 KPIs. That's all. That's all you need to focus on. And I promise you, if you focus on these 3 KPIs and you make improvement on those 3 KPIs, you're going to have an amazing business. So the first one is, how much cash do you have relative to your monthly overhead? Microsoft bought LinkedIn for $26.2 billion in an all-cash deal. If you have lots of cash, you have lots of optionality. You get to buy really cool things. 99% of the prospective clients I talk to before they become customers do not focus enough on cash, do not have enough cash. And so we put a huge emphasis on growing their cash. The second one is profit margin. I want you to have, I'll use the term EBITDA. Most people will know what it is, but some people won't. It is a fancy term for profit. I want your profit as a percent of revenue to be 20%. You get 50% of your revenue to deliver for your customers, and you get 30% of your revenue to invest in the infrastructure of your business, and then you get to put 20% in your pocket. And then the last one is I want you to have 20% year over year consistent top line growth, revenue growth. Now, I recognize that those are only 3 KPIs. Underneath them are other KPIs. So for example, you need to understand your churn, or how much new business you win, or how much you upsell. And then under new business, you need to understand, the number of opportunities that you generate a month, your win rate, your average order value, your sales cycle. So I'm not saying that there aren't other KPIs to track, but they all roll up into one of those 3. Yeah. And so that's the starting part of spending your time and your money intelligently. And so the platform we built and the services that we provide are all focused on helping you improve those 3 numbers.
Wow, that's great. I love that. And I love how you broke it down into the 3 KPIs. And I love how, too, you just mentioned, like, you have those kind of being like the pillars. And then underneath each of those pillars, you have like KPIs, I guess, is what we can call it.
Exactly. And then underneath those sub KPIs, like, let's just say you're only getting 1 opportunity a month. Well, then the question is, well, what do I need to do to get 2 opportunities a month? And what are the things you need to track to make that happen? So, but if you, I was in a sales pitch about a year ago, and the guy is a data-driven person. He knows numbers really well. But what he said to me was, look, I'm really sophisticated. I track 315 different KPIs every day. And I didn't have the heart in that meeting to say it. I wish I could go back and tell him, like, my honest thoughts. But if you're tracking 315 different KPIs, you're tracking nothing. It is so hard to make decisions off of 315 KPIs. But if you're tracking 3, it's very manageable. We've actually got it down to 1. So we created something called the CPR score. The CPR score is a play on health, hence the word CPR, but it's also an acronym for cash, profit, and revenue. And so I know you're big into AI. We actually use machine learning to take those 3 inputs to give everyone a score. So think of it as like your credit score, but rather than for you as an individual, it's for you as a company. That's great. So I want you to have a 60 or higher. So the idea is that the least amount of things to look at to make decisions will make your life easier, not more difficult.
Yeah, it's you end up having analysis paralysis when you have,
Yeah,
like you said, 315 KPIs. Yeah, that's a
yeah.
ridiculous number. Now there's so much I kind of want to unpack from what you just said, John, but I maybe through an example. Do you have like an example, maybe particular industry or something that you could kind of walk through? Like what would it look like for them to use the Fiscal Advocate program? Maybe like a healthcare company, or what are some of the niches I
You
think
know,
of?
I only work with people-oriented businesses.
Awesome. Okay.
So any professional service company, so a marketing agency, and even when you think of marketing agencies, you have web development companies, PR firms,
Yeah.
digital media, traditional media, but then law firms, architects, engineers, management consultants, anything where you're
Awesome.
hiring people.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about the profit side. The first thing I have to do is actually explain just a standard language that I want them to use. Let's start with revenue. Revenue seems like a really easy one. Like, well, your revenue is your revenue. I can't tell you how many people come to me and like, I'm a $30 million company, but they're really only a $6 million company because they have $24 million in media that they're spending on behalf of their customers. And so what I explain is pass-through revenue doesn't count. So there's gross revenue, which includes that 24 million of media, and then there's net revenue. I'm only interested in net revenue. The second thing that I generally have to explain is cost of service. Cost of service is anything that relates to doing client work. It is your people, it is your freelancers, it is your vendors or technology you use, it's travel and entertainment, it's client gifts. And if you take your net revenue minus your cost of service, you get gross profit. If you take gross profit divided by your net revenue, you get gross margin. Now, this number, gross margin, is this first secret holy grail number that I try to get people to understand. I don't know if you ever watched Shark Tank where they talk about like, you know, I have a 70% gross margin or I have a 13% gross margin. Well, most professional service companies do not know how to calculate their gross margin and they have no idea what it is. And the reason why is most of the accounting software will bundle all your payroll into one line item, but you need to unbundle it and move all the people that do client work into doing client work. And then you need to move all the people who are not doing client work into another area. Hope I'm not getting too technical on this, but
No, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love that.
but I'm going to give you the numbers that matter. Your gross margin for a professional service company should be between 50 and 60%. If it is above 60%, most likely somebody is getting screwed. You're either burning out your employees or you're under delivering for your customers. In either case, client churn is at risk because if you burn out your employees and your employees quit, well, then your clients are going to get pissed off and then they're going to quit. And if you're under delivering, then someone else is going to come along and actually deliver for them. So that's one number. If you're below 40%, it is almost next to impossible to make money. And if you're between 40 and 50%, you're going to choose between being profitable or investing back in your company, but it's going to be really hard to do both.
Yeah.
And so we help people understand that number. Then on the SG&A side, the SG&A is all of your non-client related expenses. You know, you're going to have 4 major buckets. The first is sales and marketing. You get 8% of your revenue for sales and marketing. The next one is operations and finance. You get 15% of your revenue, and that's HR, legal, corporate IT, general administrative expenses, and your finance department. And then you get 7% for your executive team. Now, the last one is actually not a income statement. It's a balance sheet item, which is research and development. I want you to spend 5% of your revenue that you can capitalize making investments to make your product solution better. And if you live by those numbers, you can have a really strong, healthy business. So you asked for a specific example. I have a client right now that's not growing as quickly as they would like. They're at the 20% EBITDA number, but their gross margin's around 42%. And if you remember, I said if your gross margin is between 40 and 50%, you're going to choose between investing in your business or being profitable. And their SG&A, so all of their non-client related expenses, is at 22%. So that's 8 percentage points that they could be investing back in the company that they're not doing. And so you can generally really understand why a company is doing well or why they're not doing well simply by just categorizing everything in these buckets.
Yeah.
And then you can have strategic conversations like, you know what? They got a great business. They're making a lot of profit. They're not growing, but maybe they don't need to grow. Maybe they're happy just being where they're at. But if you want to grow, well, then we either have to fix your gross margin or we have to lower your profit goal. And so that's where it all kind of plays out.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. You basically just gave like a success kit to businesses. And I love the
Yeah.
example too that you just mentioned there, John. Well, there's a lot more I kind of want to unpack there because I want to get like signed up and use Fiscal Advocate myself because I've done a lot of like consulting for businesses over the years, John. And yeah, what you just have built with the platform takes a lot of that manual work away. It's like, what is the intelligence that you need to
Yeah.
know to make those decisions? It's oh, what was it? Zig Ziglar used to say,
Yeah.
you need a checkup from the neck up when you
Yeah.
have that stinking thinking kind of th side of things, and it usually comes down to where are you spending your time and your money. And this
Yeah.
platform, now you can actually gauge that, and then you can have the intelligence to make improvements there. I love that. Do you find that when you have that intelligence, it's easier to have those tough conversations with the business owners than on like, making the decisions? Has that helped that they're like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize, we're spending our money in this way? How
You
do
know,
those conversations happen?
what I can tell you is it is a mixed bag, just to be very honest. A lot of times that like if you think about our inventory as professional service companies, it's people. And it's actually not people, it's people we love and we've been in the trenches with and we care deeply about. And especially on the expense management side, the decisions are often that we have to reduce expenses, which means we have to reduce headcount. And so I found that different leaders have different strength and emotional capabilities to make those decisions.
Mhm.
A lot of them will make the decision, but it might take them longer than I want them to take it.
Yeah.
Some of them will defend like what they're doing. So I have a mix of people who are like, I'm all in. I want to be profitable. I'm losing money and I want to get to at least 5% EBITDA.
Yeah.
And this is the cuts I need to make. As some people are like, this person's been with me for 20 years and this person's my cousin. And, and I totally understand that. And, what I tell people is we make decisions with our head, but we operate with our heart.
Mhm.
And so we have to make the right decision for the company. But there's ways that you can do it where you show true empathy, true caring. You can go out of your way to help them find jobs. Like there's all sorts of things that you can do. But I find different leaders take the information differently. But it goes back to that income statement. How important is it for you with, once again, gray information, black and white decisions, black and white outcomes,
Yeah.
for you to grab that information and run with it.
Yeah, it doesn't come down to just making a decision. It's now coming down to making an informed decision. And yeah, I love what you just mentioned there
Yeah.
is like we have a desire, or some of the leaders you said you work
Yeah.
with have a desire to operate from the heart, which I really, yeah, resonate with
Yeah.
that. I remember even from my own experiences, being an employee to ultimately like founding my own company and going through startup
Yeah.
phases and things, you learn, yeah, how to treat
Yeah.
people the right way. And you remember some of the ones that didn't treat people the
Exactly.
right way. And sometimes those stick out, more than the other
Yeah.
ones, which is a shame. So we need to, yeah, be talking about more good leaders doing good things, John. So I want to jump into like some of the challenges that you face, and then I want to unpack a little bit of the AI and machine learning aspect that you just mentioned with the platform. And I know you've got proprietary information you can't share, all the kind of secret sauce that you've got, but I do want to get into that. So maybe let's limit it to like what was one of the greatest challenges that you faced related to, okay, you did Rise Interactive, you had an agency, then you started creating the platform with Fiscal Advocate and everything. What was maybe one of the greatest challenges kind of going from that transition from the agency side to basically, yeah, building now a platform? Would you classify the company as a SaaS platform, John?
It's a tech-enabled service company. So you can license the technology directly, or you can hire us to manage all your finances. So
Awesome.
I'm going to give just a quick overview of the finance department. So
Awesome. Yeah.
most people don't recognize that there are four major functions of a finance department. There is tax, and generally your CPA is the person you want that's really good at tax. Then there is corporate development, and this is about raising money, getting lines of credit at the bank, and also acquiring companies and having the finance department involved in that. The third one, which is oftentimes what people think of as the most, is what I'll call as accounting. And this is your bookkeeping. So like closing the books, invoicing, AR, AP, and payroll. And then the final one is financial planning and analysis. And so like when you think of my software, it's really budgeting, business intelligence, and benchmarking software for the professional service space. Yeah. And when it comes to putting a budget together, there's a methodology we have, but it requires work. And I'm just going to give you an example. When you put a forecast together and you're forecasting, what's the year going to look like for 2024? Today's September 5th. And I got 4 months worth or almost 4 months worth, and I want to forecast something. And all of a sudden, an employee comes to me and demands a raise. And I decide to give that employee a raise. Well, you have to have the infrastructure where there's an analyst who goes in and puts that information into the forecast. So if you don't have an FP&A department within your company, like you don't have that analyst who's going to put that information in, you're going to need a service solution that can help you do that. And so we provide the technology, but all the wraparound services that go with it. Now, to answer your question, I'll tell you one of the biggest challenges in this business relative to my last business. I mentioned to you I did marathons. I also used to do a ton of triathlons.
Oh, cool.
And I did my first half Ironman in a place called Mattoon, Illinois, which is a very rural place in Illinois. And when you do a half Ironman, your bike ride is 56 miles long. And at that moment in time, my average speed was around 20 miles per hour. The course was 28 miles on one road all the way out, and you turned around and you went 28 miles back.
Wow.
The wind on that particular day was between 25 and 30 miles per hour. And the first 28 miles, I went directly into the wind, and my average speed was 6 to 9 miles per hour. When I turned around, I was flying 30 to 35 miles per hour. Now, I think it could have even gone faster. I think I was a little scared. And so I stuck at the 30 to 35 miles per hour. Now, the reason why I gave that story is because I believe that business is very similar. You cannot fight the wind. When I started Rise, there was a massive amount of money in traditional or linear TV media. And that money was shifting at a very rapid rate to digital media. Yeah. I think most of that transition is done and it's balanced now. Yeah. So I was able, as a digital media agency, to benefit of the wind at my back, allowing me to go 30 to 35 miles per hour. In the FP&A space, which is the predominant space, we do the accounting side, but the core business of what we do, the core business of the technology is on the financial planning and analysis. I'm kind of in a windless zone. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like there is this massive trend or disruption in technology that is now saying, hey guys, we got to go get an FP&A department and we got to go get analysts and we have to go spend money in this area. But the difference is the volume of companies that I can go after are substantially larger. So that's right. So it's a unique space. So to me, the biggest challenge, and what I tell people all the time is, if you have wind at your back, you can make a lot of mistakes. And so you really should think about who your customers are. And you should really think about the services you provide, and is there wind at the back of your customers, and is there wind at the back of your service offering?
Wow, I love that. Yeah, very good. And I love the example there too, John. Really good. Let's jump into the AI side of things because, a lot
Yeah,
of people in my audience are very much talking about AI. A lot of people on my YouTube channel, tune into some of my how-to videos, the tutorials that I talk about, John. So I'm curious, maybe we can start off with like the machine learning that you said Fiscal Advocate uses on the platform side of things. What are some of the maybe just to not kind of give away like your secret sauce or things, because I recommend people to like go actually use the platform and everything, connect with you
yeah.
guys. But what are some of the data sources, that these companies can kind of connect into Fiscal Advocate? Do you have any like typical platforms you see in that? Is that like QuickBooks or like how are some of those other
Yeah.
platforms integrated?
So full integration with QuickBooks, we're building more integrations. And I'll talk a little bit about where my vision is and how AI fits within it.
Awesome. Perfect.
Because there's a big vision for AI in terms of the technology. There's a lot of foundational things that we're still building prior to that AI component. But not only do we have your historic data, because if you think about any accounting platform, if you bring in your accounting data, that's all from today and backwards. None of it is your predictions of the future.
Mm-hmm.
So what the software does is it takes a lot of that data from the past and helps you together to predict and put your budget together and your forecast together of what the future looks like. Because ultimately, we're making decisions about what the future is going to look like. And I'll give you a real life example. A client of ours, let's just say is around $10 million. And they want to end up at 10 million for the year. That was their latest forecast.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing you want to know is what's their blue sky revenue. And blue sky refers to revenue from the new business side that you have not won yet, that you have not identified. So you know that you tend to win a client every single month. We have to figure out what is that number. Let's just say the number is $1 million and today's September 5th. And then you look at the pipeline and you don't see a path to $1 million. QuickBooks won't help you analyze that. So what you have to then do is determine what's the likelihood of you winning this $1 million. So where I see AI helping is that anyone who becomes a client of ours gives us the rights to their aggregated data. So I'll never tell anyone their individual data, but I get to use all the aggregated data rights. Yeah. And so I can go look at the past and I can say, you know what, you have won a new client every single month for the last 30 months, but it's been one client. And the average order value has been $100,000. You're most likely going to win $400,000 between September 5th and December 31st. You're not going to win $1 million. So now we know that there's $600,000 that you're going to be short of your goals. So now we're going to have a conversation about expense management and how much cost you should take out of the business. But my long-term view is imagine ChatGPT combined with our proprietary data set. And so imagine now it's September 5th. Everybody who's listening to this should be working on their 2025 budget. And imagine being able to say, please put my budget together for 2025 with 20% growth and 20% EBITDA. Yep. And it would create the revenue plan. It would do it by line of business. It would develop the hiring model. And then it would also tell you the likelihood of it being achieved. It'd be like, based on you only winning one new client a month at an average $100,000, it looks like you're going to be closer to 7% as opposed to, 20%. Yeah. And here are the investments you want to make. So that's an example of where we envision AI coming into what we plan on doing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. And as soon as you said machine learning, my ears, perked up.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time, in that space every day with my own clients, and I lead a lot of enterprise training actually for companies integrating AI into what they're doing now. And I just see so much of the value of what you've just described. Because a lot of the conversations I'm having with some of these business owners and the different departments, especially, are like, we want to find a way to automate the collection of this data, and then it gives us recommendations or this intelligence to then have, like
Yeah.
we talked about earlier, informed decision-making abilities. So like what you're building is so valuable, it's so important, and I really love that. I know we are getting close to the end of our conversation. So
Yeah.
I've got a few more questions I definitely want to hit with you, John. But what besides like the machine learning, the data collection side, and I love, your future kind of vision outlook that you just mentioned that you're working on. But what are you guys using AI for internally? I mean, even me personally, I'm using a lot of like I use some privately hosted things for sensitive data. Obviously, I don't want
Yeah.
ChatGPT or OpenAI, to have that. Same with Anthropic or Claude, using that. But what are some of the tools that maybe you guys are using, or you personally, John, are using on a daily basis?
I'm honestly not using AI enough. It's one of the things I'm part of a bunch of different Slack channels with other entrepreneurs, and I've been asking other people like what they're using it for. Here's my general recommendation for anyone that's thinking about going down the path of AI is first start with what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you rather than focus on, hey, I got to use AI, start saying, hey, I want to develop, I don't know, blog content faster, So then start thinking about, well, what are all the tools that you could use that would help you? There's a tool called Cassidy AI
Yeah.
that will connect to your Google Drive and your LinkedIn and your website. And you can use that data so that if you already have standard operating procedures, that might be a faster way to write blog posts than going into Chat GPT and writing something. And so to me, like, be very clear on this is the use case I want to solve. Then take a more holistic view. So don't say AI, just say what tools can help me solve that problem. And then if AI happens to be one of them, that is awesome. That's my tended recommended approach. Because I think that AI is like saying, like, how are you using HTML to,
That's
increase your
right.
workflow? And
That's
so
right.
I think if you narrow it down to like your deep focus of what you want to improve, but going back to my, all the way to the beginning of our conversation, this pursuits of world class.
Yeah.
Uh, if you don't leverage these tools, I believe you will be left behind. I also think that the leaders of tomorrow will be different than the leaders of today in the marketing services space. And I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I think that AI is going to be much more integrated across organizations. And I think the ones that can help you figure out how to take advantage of that are the ones that are really going to win.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I share a similar view. Over the last probably 5 to 10 years, I've been very involved in like the tech space, the marketing technology space,
Yeah.
John. And I think, programmatic SEO has been a big topic for many years. I think we're
Yeah.
getting to the stage now when you use AI the right way and machine learning,
Yeah.
subset of AI, we're getting to programmatic marketing tools and
Yeah.
platforms. Now, I really want to highlight and focus in on this point. What you just described is focusing on the real value transfer. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people, are focusing on AI as a hype. Generative
Yeah.
AI is like ChatGPT and Claude, but the fundamentals of AI and like using AI to help empower you be more efficient. And what are those, again, big like pivot points, those like dials of the business that you said earlier? It's where are you spending your money? Where are you spending your time? What are those challenges? And then work backwards from there. Okay, how can AI be the tool that can empower me or the customers I'm
Yeah.
trying to serve? Because I don't know if you saw it too, John, recently, but there's been a study. I can't remember who put it out. I'll put it in the show notes in the YouTube video description. But for B2C companies that are putting AI powered or AI terms in their customer facing messaging, it's actually
Yeah.
been a turnoff. So for the B2B side, though, the business owners are like, oh man, I want to integrate AI into what we're doing. So it's a matter of like positioning, but yeah, it comes down to also that value transfer that you talked about. I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
You know what? I would just say in general, like I used a lot of automation for like LinkedIn messages, and I've also used a lot of it for email. I don't do it anymore. I do
Mm,
all of my communication manually.
yeah.
I do not think that AI is the right tool in terms of communicating. The challenge is there's not a good off switch. I'll give you an example. I won't, because it's being recorded and it's going to go live, I won't mention the company's name, but
Yeah.
there's a company out there that is a vendor trying to sell me something.
Hmm.
And for a last year, I've been getting messages from this guy over and over and over and over again. And I actually finally was potentially interested in talking. And so I replied to him and we started a conversation. And then his AI messages are continually hitting me up at the same time,
Yeah.
because they didn't have a good kill function of
Mm,
like stop the messaging and stop the automation. And so it's becoming obvious like when they're using the tools.
yep.
And I think that it loses the authenticity.
Yeah.
So to me, I I try to make sure that I'm using AI more for efficiencies and automation, but it'll be like on the reporting side or on the process improvement side, not on the communication side.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think it comes down to, play in your strong areas because like a
Yeah,
lot of I've seen I'm a part of a few different AI masterminds and a lot of AI technologists building tools. And unfortunately, there are a lot of like you experienced, John, bad people like using AI automation and employing it the wrong way. And it is a
yeah,
huge turnoff. And the same thing with like what you've built, with Fiscal Advocate. It comes down to, okay, we recognize that machine learning can help us, in these different aspects. But how did you come to that conclusion? Yeah, you were at Rise, you were going through
yeah,
seeing some of these challenges. So I think, like you said, it's going to be new leaders that I think have learned through, a lot of these different kind of painful experience and like, no, this is not, the excellent way to
yeah,
do this. We need to do this the right way. And if AI can't help us get there, okay, let's wait or let's see, if another expert can kind of come into this space and integrate it. A lot of the companies I've seen, they want to integrate AI, but if you're just trying to take something like off the shelf, it's not going to work because yeah, you have a lot
yeah,
of training and the same thing with you with your experience too, John. It's like, it's not a cookie cutter approach. And I think a lot of
yeah,
people, unfortunately, misunderstand that AI, especially tools like ChatGPT, oh, I want it to write, this LinkedIn post. But if you do that, of course, it's not going to sound like you because you didn't
yeah,
train it, you didn't, fine tuning. Again, there's a lot of technical side of things to get into, but I loved your position there too. So I would definitely encourage, and I agree with you, if you feel like that is not like up to the standards or performing, how you want it, kill it and focus
yeah.
on authenticity because authenticity is what really comes through today. But even a lot of the things for me, I've trained probably 4 or 5 thought leaders, AIs
Yeah.
that writes content in their voice, and a lot of their audience does not know it's AI tools that are,
I'm
writing that
sure,
content.
I'm sure if I investigated the what happens when someone replies, I mean,
Yep.
and how do you ensure that they don't receive the message and
Yep.
all these other things. And then there's also all the spam filter rules and there's the,
Yes.
getting penalized for using technology. And so I just chose, I was like, you know what, I'm sick of fighting the battle. I'm sick of being scared of getting like, kicked off of LinkedIn or get, blacklisted from my
That's right.
email provider. And so I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to follow the rules exactly as they want me to follow the rules. But
Yep.
I will absolutely use, automation and AI for like my list building, my segmentation
Yeah.
of everything, the standardizing my standard operating procedures. I use
Yeah.
ChatGPT or Jasper all the time for
Yeah.
writing my content. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so there's ways that I'm using it. There's definitely ways I could use it a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, a lot of people are in a similar spot, John. It's like, oh, and it comes back down to what are your metrics? Because like,
Yeah.
what's your ROI? Because it's like if you're putting in all this time using a tool or you haven't found a good solution to like yourself, go ahead and use it. don't do it then.
Yeah,
So all right, I've got a few more questions here. Maybe we can jump into the goal setting side of things because when I was doing my own research, John, before you
yeah,
jumped on here with the recording here for our audience, I wanted to open it up for you. Any final words of advice, especially related to the goal setting side of things? Because I know you mentioned some of the KPIs, the three KPIs, which is like gold. I love
yeah,
that value that you delivered there. But any other kind of final words of advice or for the
yeah.
business owners, goal setting side of things?
Yeah, so a couple things. First thing I say is everyone has a strategic plan, whether they know it or not, is what you spend your time and money on. People come to me all the time and say, hey, John, I really want to grow faster like you did Rise. And I was like, awesome. How much do you spend on sales and marketing as a percent of your revenue? It's like, oh, I don't spend anything on sales and marketing. It's all just word of mouth. It's
Mm.
like, well, you don't really want to grow faster if you're not investing in money to grow faster. And so the first thing is you have to understand what you spend your time and money on is what you deem important.
Yeah.
When it comes to goal setting, I'm going to recommend four things that you should think about. The first one is your revenue goal. What are you going to invest in to grow your revenue next year? The second one is your profit goal. The third one is your cash goal, which is the first three things I talked about. And then the fourth one is your infrastructure goal. And this is what investments are you going to make in your business so that a year from now it is better then than it is today. And this goes back to that pursuit of world class. Is if you think about the investments you want to make, then you can ensure that you actually are realizing those benefits and making sure that they make progress.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, very, very good insights there, John. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I want to ask how people can get connected with you, John, especially like getting signed up and experiencing Fiscal Advocate and all the hard work that
Yeah.
you've put in building that. What are some of the links or websites, people can get started with you or learn more?
So you can go to fiscaladvocate.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I do posts fairly regularly. I write a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn called Fiscal Focus, which you can subscribe to. And then email me at jon@fiscaladvocate.com.
Awesome. Yeah, John, thank you so much again for taking
Thank
time to
you.
be
This
here
was
with
great,
us.
Jason.
If you guys are interested or found value in what John just shared, go ahead on YouTube channel, drop a comment, and just let us know, what kind of value points or insights John shared that stuck out to you. If you are listening to the podcast and you're driving, please don't comment right now until you're in a safe spot. But go ahead and please give us a review as well. It helps the algorithm, to promote and share these awesome conversations here like John. John, thanks again. And I would love to have you back, again in the future and kind of unpack more of these things. Maybe, we could even see some of the future AI improvements and things that you just mentioned with updates on Fiscal Advocate. But thanks again. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember to keep moving forward, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.